Now that we've established that the extremities of the body can be divided into the upper and lower guards, the guards themselves can be further subdivided into layers. For the upper guard, layer 1 is your hands, and layer 2 is your elbows. Your head can only frame, so it doesn't really have any layers. You just can't let your opponent gain access to the inside position underneath your chin. For the lower guard, layer 1 is your feet, and layer 2 is your knees. Therefore, layer 1 can be thought of as your grips, and layer 2 as your frames. Remember that within your guards, grips and frames together manage distance in order to prevent your opponent from taking inside position on you. Let's look at some examples of layers of defense in action. In a standing situation, when you have your feet on the mat, you're still in layer 1 of your lower guard. However, if you're taken down to turtle, you're now in layer 2 because you have your frames on the mat. You could attack from your turtle or work to get back to layer 1 of your defense either by standing up or transitioning to your guard. If you get taken down and passed at the same time, you now have no layers of defense with your lower guard, and you'll have to rely on your upper guard. When you're on the ground in your guard and you have your feet on your opponent, you're still in layer 1 of your defense. If your opponent gets past your feet, then all you have left is your frames to defend. If your opponent gets past your knees, then they're past layer 2 of your defense. Therefore, you no longer have a guard with your lower guard. You must use your upper guard to help you get your lower guard back in play. When we talk about layers of defense, we're talking specifically about defense, not offense. For example, when you take an underhook, this is done for offensive purposes to take inside position. You do not need your hand or elbow in front of your opponent anymore to defend because you're attacking. Another example would be dominant positions. You do not need to be in layer 1 of your defense in mounts or side control because these are offensive positions. It makes more sense to be on your knees in these cases. When we talk purely defensively, having your hands in front of your opponent will provide the most defense, as will having your feet in front of your opponent when you're on the ground. The same applies to your feet on the mat. You need to eventually get to layer 2 to get chest to chest and attack, but your feet on the mat is layer 1 of your defense. However, understand that in Jiu-Jitsu, it's a balancing act between being offensive and defensive. But understand that layers of defense will both help your defense and attack your opponent's defense. Let's look at some examples of layers of defense in action. Here I'm out of position. I do not have grips or frames on my opponent. I could try to attack a head and arm throw, but they're pretty low percentage. Because my opponent has more inside position with his underhook than I would have with his head, I risk getting my back taken with a body lock, so I immediately readjust to get back to layer 2 of my defense with my arm. I get my elbow on him. Now he's no longer past my elbow. Here I'm past my opponent's layer 1 at both his legs, his feet. Now the objective is clear, get past layer 2, his knees. I do, and now I'm in mounts, past the guard because I'm past the knees. I'm past layer 2. Here the guy in the blue gi is in layer 2 with his right foot. He has less base like this from a standing position, and he gets taken down as a result. If he would have stood up to both his feet, he'd be back to layer 1 of his defense, and likely wouldn't have been taken down. Here my opponent is in layer 2 of his defense with both his legs, and he's swept. When I try to sweep him later in the round, he readjusts to layer 1 of his defense, and I'm unable to sweep him as a result. Layers of defense apply to escapes as well. When my opponent brings his elbow, his layer 2, from in front of me to behind me, he's now out of my armbar. Here I'm trying to get past my opponent's elbow so I can arm triangle him. My opponent forces his elbow down so I'm behind it instead of in front of it. Now he's escaped. But here my opponent cannot get his elbow in front of me and he gets arm triangled as a result.
Frames are defensive in nature because they keep your opponent far away from your inside position, and within our defense we have layers of defense. So for example, our grips are level 1 of defense and our elbows are level 2. So for example here, I can keep Mike far away from me using my hand. If he gets past my hand, then I need to use my elbow to stop him from getting close to me. If he gets past my elbow, then he takes inside position. The same applies when standing. So for example, Mike's standing right now, he has his feet on the mat, he's in layer 1 of defense. If I go to take him down and he gets to his knees, he'll be in layer 2. So if I'm here, I lift him up, take him down, he's on his knees, well he's still in defensive position. If I took him down and his knees weren't on the mat, they'll have no layers of defense, I can attack much easier. But if I go to take Mike down and he can't get his layer 1 or layer 2 of defense, then he's all the way on the ground. His inside position is on the ground. His torso is on the ground. So if I'm here, I go for maybe an ankle pick, I take him down, boom, here. Well now he has no layers of defense on the mat. So when passing, we need to get past the first layer of defense so I can control the legs. And when I enter in, because his feet are behind me, he doesn't have that layer of defense. If he were to hook his legs onto me like this, well, I'm past this layer of defense, but this is more offensive because he's hooking, he's gripping with it. This foot here will be still on his layer 1 of defense, so I need to get that foot off me. We do that by stepping over it.